Every team enters the offseason with the checklist of needs that they're hoping to address, whether it's through free agency or the draft. So today we're going to take a look at the top 3 needs for every AFC team. Starting with the AFC East, let's go ahead get into this sucker with the Buffalo Bills. And I have safety, edge, and wide receiver as their biggest needs. And you'll see that I have the current top player entering the 2024 season included there. As we got Jordan Poyer. As they actually have quite a bit of free agents at the safety position, but it's like Tyler Rapp, I believe Micah Hyde. So I think it's more likely with the Bills. I believe they're currently at 41 million over the cap, as they're the team with the most work to do currently. As the Saints, they've been restructuring some contracts, so they're currently at 36 million over the cap. But the Bills got some work to do. So it's very likely that they're going to address all their needs via the draft, whether it is safety, Cameron Kitchens, could be a second round pick, Chop Robinson. I mean, the Bills, they love their RAS players. If you're unfamiliar with RAS, it's just relative athletic score. So they love those type of players. So Chop Robinson, he's going to test out well. Could be an option for them in the first round. Or when it comes to receiver, there's a plethora of options at the back end of the first round, whether it's Keon Coleman, E.D. Mitchell, you got Troy Franklin. As the Bills, they got their Stephon Diggs, they got Khalil Shakir, but they're probably looking to add someone who's a bit more consistent than Gabe Davis. But I do have some low budget free agent options they could definitely go with, like Jordan Fuller. I'm kind of shocked that his I think he's only projected as like two-year $9 million deal, because he's been very good over the last couple of years. So I'm shocked that it's that low. But if you're looking for a budget contract at safety, that's a good one. Derek Barnett probably going to be on a 1-year prove-it deal after a very strong finish with the Texans. So you could probably get him in for relatively cheap. Same with Donovan Peoples-Jones. So those are a couple of the options that the Bills could go with via free agency. But let's go to the Dolphins. As the Dolphins, they're not in much better cap situation than the Bills. It is better, but not by much. They're currently at 24 million over the cap. So whatever they do is probably going to have to be done via the draft. But I have offensive line as obviously the biggest need for the Miami Dolphins. Robert Jones is probably their best guard headed into the 2024 season, with Liam Eichenberg as their best center. Not a good place to be if you're the Dolphins. They could tag Robert Hunt. I think that's very unlikely because, as we can see, Christian Wilkins right here, he's also scheduled to be a free agent. I think he's just more likely to get hit with the tag. So what the Dolphins could do, they could draft maybe like a Christian Haynes in the second round. That would be a really good fit for them. When it comes to center, they could go Jackson Powers-Johnson in the first round. That could be an option if he's not off the board. Could also re-sign Connor Williams, who probably you could get for relatively cheap, who's coming off an ACL injury, probably wants to rehab there in Miami. So it'd be nice to bring him back, because honestly, when on the field, Connor Williams is really darn good. But you look at that defensive interior position, we got free agents galore. I think the only guy scheduled to come back is Zach Sealer. So I think we're probably going to tag Christian Williams, but also another option, since the Dolphins, you look, and after their second round pick, we don't have a pick until the 5th round. So I was like, okay, who's a good 5th round pick, or at least somewhere in that general area? But like Jawan Briggs at Cincinnati, someone who I actually just got to recently after he had a very strong Shrine Bowl, could be a pretty good option, man. A guy who's much better athlete than you would expect. Very, very strong. Works with the low center of gravity. So could be an option for us in the 5th round, but Dolphins financially just not in the best of spots. But then we can talk about the New England Patriots, who currently they're slated to have 87 million in cap space to work with. Golly, they could probably make some moves. they could probably make some moves. So I got wide receiver, tackle, and tight end as their biggest needs. Obviously, there's quarterback, but I think most people probably anticipate them to do something about that in the first round. We'll see. But wide receiver, they got Pop Douglas, probably their best wide receiver on the roster, though Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster they're okay vets. So, but they don't have a superstar there at wide receiver, which, I mean, hey, dude, if the Colts don't bring back Michael Pittman, go ahead and just throw money at him. I would say you got the money to spend. Throw some money at him. Get some better receiving targets in there. You could also go Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round, but I don't know. We'll see. The Patriots got to figure out the quarterback position, and they might have to do that in the first round. Tackle, Calvin Anderson, who honestly one of the better backup tackles in the league, but not a guy you want at starter. So they could go with like a Jermaine Illuminor, who was on the Patriots, I think from 2019 to 2020. Could be wrong about that, but he played 2 years with the Patriots, and he has been a very solid tackle over the last couple of years. They could go early in the second round with maybe a Jordan Morgan. That would be a good pickup there. But looking at their tight end, like legit, LaMichael Petway is the only tight end currently on the roster. So they could definitely go Dalton Schultz. They could throw out the money bag for him. They could go Kate Stover in the fourth round. That would be a good pick. But I mean, honestly, they could go with Stover as tight end too, and then Schultz come out and just be that receiving nightmare. But nonetheless, this is a team that actually has quite a bit of needs on the offensive end. Let's talk about the New York Jets. This is another team that has quite a bit of needs there at the offensive line position. Lincoln Tomlinson just hasn't been that good, but he's their best guard headed into 2024. I do anticipate Joe Tippmann to take up the center spot. So we're looking at options here. The Jets don't exactly have great cap space, but it's not bad. What, they got like 20 million, right? Yeah, they got 20 million to work with, so they can make some low budget moves. When like Opeta would be a good option, who honestly played well for the Eagles at parts. If they're looking for a guard, Mason McCormick could be a good pickup in the third round. When it comes to tackle, because most certainly Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be playing tackle there. Then you got Mekhi Becton is going to be hitting free agency. They can bring in like a Cornelius Lucas, who's a very good backup center in the league, and honestly, when asked to start, plays pretty darn well. But I think it's more likely that the Jets are going to address tackle in the first round, whether that's Olu Fashanu, whether that's Lanisa Fuaga. It's going to be one of those top tackle talents. And then this is another team that don't have a lot going on at safety, as Tony Adams is their best safety on the roster, who actually saw some playing time there this past season. But I would say, man, with the year that Jordan Whitehead put up, you probably want to re-sign him, bring him back. They could go with like a Dominique Hampton in the fourth round. I'm actually a really big fan of his. I think he is a very fluid mover who brings a lot of length, a lot of size. It'd be really fun for the squad. So I think ideally, though, you bring back Jordan Whitehead. Just had a big year for the Jets there. Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment, and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet, so send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals, and guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase. and it's a great way to support the channel. Moving to the AFC North, we got the Baltimore Ravens, who I've pinpointed corner, edge, and running back as the big needs there. You could also make a case for tackle, but they got Morgan Moses, they got Ronnie Stanley. Honestly, when those guys are healthy, you feel good about your tackle position, but you probably want to be looking for the future. But when it comes to corner, they got Marlon Humphrey, and honestly, that's about it. You got Rocky Sin, Ronald Darby as free agents. Brandon Stevens is a good rotation player, but you probably want to bring in a little bit more talent and competition to the position. When it comes to the Baltimore Ravens in cap space, they're currently at $12 million, so it's not like they got a lot of money to work with. So maybe like a one-year deal with Emmanuel Mosley would actually be pretty fun. A guy that's unfortunately coming off back-to-back ACL injuries. So you could probably get him for cheap. There's Audrey Phillips, who I like. I think he could be a really good player there out of Kentucky. Kentucky's been pushing out some solid cornerback talent recently. You go to running back. It's Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill. Those are the only two guys they got on the roster. I think Derrick Henry, this is a prime spot for Derrick Henry. And if not him, then Audric Estime out of Notre Dame, I think could be a good complement to Keaton Mitchell. And then, of course, Odafe Oweh, I think him and Tyus Bowser are the only edge talents back on the roster. Well, you got David Ojabo, but he's coming off another serious injury. So probably you just want to re-sign Javion Clowney. You could draft like a Marshawn Nealon in the second round, but I think likely you want to just keep some of the guys who played well for you last year, like bring them back. Cincinnati Bengals. I got right tackle, tight end, and defensive interior as their biggest needs. Tight end, they literally have nobody. Everybody's a free agent. So they could go out, they could get a Hunter Henry. If they're, maybe at 18, they're looking at Brock Bowers, maybe, but I think they probably address that in free agency. They've already tagged T. Higgins. I don't think it'll be a tag and trade. We'll see, but they definitely need a right tackle. Jackson Carman's the only tackle on the roster with decent experience. So they could go out and get like a Mekhi Becton. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But I think it's very likely that the Bengals are just in a good position to address tackle with the 18th pick. Like, there's so many good first-round talent, first-round tackles that are very talented. You might as well address it there and just go spend elsewhere. Like, I say, hey, bring back DJ Reader, man. Bring him back. This team, when he's on the field, man, or when he's off the field, this is a vastly different type of defense. But I think they bring him back. Doesn't mean that they don't address it in the draft. Like McKinley Jackson could be a solid pick there in the third round. At Texas A&M, a guy that has that size, good speed to power profile. So they could go with that. But the Bengals are going to be working with a good grip of money. Currently, they're at $52 million. They could be trying to get something long-term, though, done with T. Higgins. Going to the Cleveland Browns. I got a linebacker, defensive interior, and a wide receiver. Unfortunately, this is a squad that doesn't have a lot of money to work with. They're pretty tight on funds. Currently, they're $7 million above the cap. But yeah, we'll see what they can do to get under that. But currently on the defensive interior, Dalvin Tomlinson's kind of their top guy. They got a lot of free agents. So like Quentin Jefferson could be a good get. Relatively cheap, inexpensive addition to the defensive interior. You could go Leonard Taylor there in the second round. When it comes to linebacker, they got JOK, but I think you bring back, you could bring back Anthony Walker for like nickels and dimes, just because he's been unfortunately hurt the last couple of years. But like when on the field, he's really good. Like he's probably one of the more underappreciated linebackers in the league. They could go with like a Cedric Gray in the 3rd round, though. There's going to be a variety of different linebackers they could go with, whether it's like Eddie Fon out of Washington. You got Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. There's going to be a variety of linebackers they could probably go with if they really want to in the 3rd round area there. The wide receiver, Mari Cooper, man. It's a contract I feel like they're probably going to just restructure, but they can't really make too many additions financially. Like, they could go like Kadero Hodge because relatively inexpensive. Probably looking for more consistency than like Elijah Moore. So like Taj Washington, I think could be a really nice pickup there in the 5th round. But let's move on to the Steelers, as I have offensive tackle, center, and corner as their biggest needs. As currently Nate Herbig is their center. Guys, he's probably a better backup center than starting center. So they could probably go out and get like a Tyler Biotish. They're in free agency. The free agency center class ain't all that bad. How much money are the Steelers working with free agency wise? Not a lot, $12 million. It's still enough to get some solid starters. But they could also go Jackson Powers Johnson. When it comes to tackle, they got Broderick Jones. Don't tell me about Dan Moore. I don't think Dan Moore is that good. So they can maybe go Trent Brown, who's probably going to get like a 2-year, $14 million, $15 million deal. So you're going to be paying about $7 million a year for him. Or they could go with like Marius Mims, right, in the 1st round there. But I think probably they could address the offensive line with inexpensive needs and maybe go corner. So I got Joey Porter. Obviously, you got Joey Porter. He's your future there. Patrick Peterson's in his twilight years. You're looking for that other corner. You got Quinion Mitchell, who Mike Tomlin got to see in the flesh there at the Senior Bowl. So I don't know. I like throwing out all these 1st round options for the Steelers. And honestly, I think Quinion Mitchell is probably the most likely of the bunch there. Just because I don't think Jalen Johnson will be available there. I mean, they could. I honestly think they could address the offensive line pretty well in free agency. Because honestly, it's not that half bad of a free agent like offensive line class. It's actually pretty darn good. Let's go ahead. Let's move to the AFC South. We're going to start with the Houston Texans, as I got edge, running back, and defensive interior as their big needs. Malik Collins, who's been playing really well, is the top guy returning there on the interior. They could go out and break the bank, as they got a lot of money. They're at $74 million in cap space. They could go and get a Christian Wilkins, but there's also like a Johnny Newton they could grab there in the 1st round. We look at edge, as they got obviously Will Anderson, but you probably want to bring back like a Jonathan Grenard, who played really well for him. I expect them to try to retain some of their own talent, but you could look at like an Austin Booker there in the 3rd round as a potential developmental prospect. Then we got running back Damian Pierce. Kind of lost his starting job there to Evan Singletary. They could bring back Singletary, but rumor is, Saquon Barkley. Right now, Texans, they're kind of fancying him, which kind of makes sense. You saw what Christian McCaffrey did for the Niners. Maybe Saquon does that for Bobby Slowick and the Texans offense. Ray Davis, though, could be an option. Another Kentucky player there. That running back could be an option in the 4th round. Going to the Colts, another team with, a heck lot of cap space there, as they have $79 million. So I think they're going to tag Michael Pittman. It just makes too much sense not to do. Like, you got the money, just tag Michael Pittman. Just do it. They do bring back Josh Downs, and they got Alec Pierce, who's more of this like vertical, big-bodied threat. So maybe you go look for a speedy threat there in Xavier Worthy at the wide receiver position. You look at defensive interior. DeForest Buckner, the top guy they bring back. Maybe they go out, get a DJ Reader there to be the meat in the interior, or they could re-sign Grover Stewart. Maybe another option in the second round they could go with is Chris Jenkins. But I think corner is a route that they should definitely consider, as Juju Brents was their rookie last year, played pretty well, but they should look to address it, whether it is free agency, whether it is through the draft. They could honestly do both, because I got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, guy who could function as a safety and a slot there. And then Terrion Arnold to kind of play the outside, because remember, Kenny Moore is a free agent. So I kind of like doing both of these, going Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and drafting Terrion Arnold. We'll see if he's available there, but I kind of like that. All right, so we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. I got wide receiver, left guard, and center as their big needs. Wide receiver, they do have Calvin Ridley as a free agent. They could slap the franchise tag on him, but that just doesn't sound like a sexy option, does it? It really doesn't. They got $30 million, and I don't think wasting about what was it, like 18 to 20 million on a franchise tag for Calvin Ridley just doesn't sound like it. They could go Michael Pittman. They could go Brian Thomas in the first round. I think those are two very good options. When it comes to left guard, Cooper Hodges, a guy who I think he had a season-ending knee injury in the preseason, is their only guy listed at left guard. So maybe they go out and make a bid for like a Damian Lewis to try to get more consistency along the offensive line there. We could talk about Cooper Beebe in the second round out of Kansas State. Could be a very good option as well. And then Darius Williams, I don't think he's a good matchup for Ryan Nielsen's defense. So they could throw money at L'Jarius Sneed. That would be huge. You go with Terrion Arnold. Go Quinion Mitchell. There's a variety of different areas they could go, but I really want to see the Jaguars like throw money at a high, like whether it's Michael Pittman, whether it's L'Jarius Sneed, throw money at a high value position. All right, Tennessee Titans. We got offensive tackle, center, and corner as their big needs. They currently have no one there at center, so they could break the bank. They currently have $85 million in cap space and go get a Lloyd Cushenberry, who might not be able, like the Broncos, they could tag him, but financially they just don't have a lot of room on the roster. So like you could go out and you can grab a very solid center there. We could talk about Zach Frazier in the second round. I kind of like throwing money at Cushenberry though. Andre Dillard, currently at tackle. I mean, you could go with the Tyron Smith as kind of a stopgap. I think Joe Alt just ends up being the best pick though for the Titans if he's available there at pick 7. It's kind of like that's just the dream, you know. That's just the dream. Roger McCreary, he is more so a slot player, so like the Titans are going to be looking for some outside corners. They could go with Chidobe Awuzie, who I guess technically played under Brian Callahan, but Brian Callahan being an offensive-minded coach. But the thing is, with Denard Wilson, the former defensive back coach from the Ravens, he's seen Awuzie like quite a bit over the last 3-4 seasons. So he'd be like, yeah, let's get some veteran presence in him. I'm like in the room here. I'm familiar with this guy. We've had to play against him twice a year. Bring him on over. Come on. They could also go TJ Tampa early in the second round. I mean, I'm sure that There's going to be a lot of spending, though, there for the Tennessee Titans. Currently, they're third in total cap space. Now, let's go to the AFC West. Go to the Denver Broncos. I do list quarterback here. Feels like Russell Wilson probably won't be back with the squad. Feels like he's going to get released. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. Jarrett Stidham being their only starter there. They could trade for a quarterback. They could go Bo Nix. They could go JJ McCarthy in the first round. Those are few options. Alex Forsyth would be their center heading into next year. I think it's very likely they probably tag Cushenberry. But again, the Broncos aren't a team with a lot of cap space. Matter of fact, they are currently $13 million under the cap. Or over the cap, excuse me. Excuse me. You could go with like a Cedric Van Pran in the third round. Remember, Broncos, they only have a first and a third round pick, the second round. And then grabbing, I think, a solid corner too could go a long ways. Like Levi Wallace, I list here. Potential, just because he's kind of a budget option, but I think more so you're probably going to want to do that in the first round. I don't know, man. The Broncos, they're going to be very interesting. Who knows what they're going to... Maybe they bring back Russ. Because I don't know what else other than drafting a quarterback in the first round can they do at the quarterback position. All right. For the Kansas City Chiefs, I only have two needs. Wide receiver and defensive interior. Because defensive interior, they only bring back Neil Farrell. Kind of wild. So... I have re-signed Chris Jones, maybe sign a Tim Settle to be the big boy. Oh, they could also draft, as they got like a Ruka Rohoro in the second round, could be a really good option. Evan Anderson out of Florida Atlantic could be a good big body option there in the fifth round. Currently, Kansas City does have $28 million to play with, but I don't know, man. I don't know if they can re-sign Chris Jones and keep L'Jarius Sneed. That's going to be pretty tough. But wide receiver, kind of a big need for the squad. They got Rashee Rice, and honestly, that's about it. They could go Darnell Mooney. I think he would be a really good option on a one-year deal, like 1 year, $9 million. And they could still go wide receiver in the first round with like an A.D. Mitchell. I think would be a really good fit there. So there's that. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders, as I have identified their needs as QB, offensive interior, and defensive interior. Defensive interior, you got guys like Adam Butler and whatnot as free agents. Jerry Tillery is probably the top guy coming back, but he's really just a passing down player. If I'm the Raiders, like, they got money, right? Or yeah, they got $55 million to work with. Dude, throw all this money on Leonard Williams and like I would say force, like, if the Seahawks really want to bring him back, or if another team wants to bring him in, like, really force their hand and throw money on the interior here. They could go with like a Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa later in the draft, but I honestly like the Leonard Williams option a little bit better. Dylan Parham will come back, whether that's left or right guard. I think they should re-sign Andre James. He's a relatively solid center. And then maybe draft a Christian Mahogany there early in the third, or a Cooper Beebe. Kind of like complete that interior there. So there's a couple of options, because they do need to replace Greg Van Roten, who I think will be 34, and it's just at this point in his career, you can't really anticipate if he'll be good or not. Aiden O'Connell, like, part of me says you could run it back with Aiden O'Connell and see how it goes. They could sign Kirk Cousins. They got the money. You could draft Michael Penix in the second round. Like, bringing it in competition, I don't think is a bad thing. So we'll see. And then finally, we got the Chargers, who I have running back, defensive interior, and corner as their top needs. Isaiah Spiller is the one of the few, like, only running backs on the roster, so they could bring in maybe a J.K. Dobbins on a relatively cheap deal. since he's coming off the big injury. Currently charges are 20 million over the cap, but they still got some contracts they can shed. Maybe Jim Harbaugh goes out and gets his running back, man, Blake Corum. Maybe that's an option. When it comes to the interior, you got Scott Madlock, a guy that I really liked out of Boise State. So maybe you bring in like a Jonathan Hankins, a big body, just kind of like a guy that creates pileups. Or maybe in the second round, you draft a T'Vondre Sweat. Ooh, I kind of like that one. I like that one quite a bit. Then corner, we got Asante Samuel. They could go, Bryce Hall is a very inexpensive option. They want to get more size. Cam Hart can also be a very good option there as well. But that's it for the video. Let me know in the comment section below who are some of the guys that you're hoping your team picks up. But as always, do the YouTube thing. And until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.